When I checked into the hotel that night, I was exhausted from a long flight. All I wanted was a shower, some food, and a good night's sleep. But as I handed my ID to the receptionist, she looked at her computer, froze for a moment, then quietly slipped me a different key card. Her voice was low and urgent when she said, "Take this one instead. Don't go to the room you booked." At first, I thought I'd misheard her. I even laughed a little, asking, "Why? Is there a leak or something?" She didn't smile. She leaned forward and whispered, "Please, just trust me." I took the new key without arguing, and that decision saved my life because 5 minutes later, I heard screams coming from the room that was supposed to be mine. Before I tell you what happened that night, make sure to subscribe to Minister of Revenge and comment below where you're watching from, because what I'm about to share might change how you look at hotels forever. My name is Claire Sutton, and I was in Seattle, Washington for a 3-day business trip. I'd been traveling for work for nearly 8 years, and staying in hotels had become second nature. I knew the routine: check in, unpack, order room service, sleep, repeat. But that night was different from the start. My flight had been delayed for hours, and by the time I reached the hotel, it was almost midnight. The lobby was nearly empty, except for the night receptionist, a woman named Maya. She looked polite but tired, her dark hair tied back in a loose bun. Behind her, the soft hum of the air conditioner and the quiet ticking of a wall clock filled the silence. "Good evening. Welcome to Bridgewater Hotel," she said, forcing a smile. "Do you have a reservation?" I handed her my ID and credit card. "Yes, under Sutton, room 412. Her smile faded the moment she read the screen. Her fingers stopped typing. "Just a moment," she said softly. Her eyes darted toward the hallway that led to the rooms, then back to the computer monitor. Her breathing quickened slightly, and she pressed her lips together before looking up at me again. "Miss Sutton," she said quietly, glancing around to make sure no one else was listening. "I'm changing your room. Take this key instead. Room 418. Please don't go to the one you booked." I frowned. Wait, why did something happen to 412? She hesitated for a second too long. Then she whispered, "It's under maintenance. You'll be safer in this one." Her tone didn't match her words. She looked nervous, almost frightened. I should have pressed her more, but I was too tired to care. I shrugged and took the key. "All right, thank you." As I walked toward the elevator, I could feel her eyes on me. I turned back once, and she was still standing there watching. When I reached the 4th floor, the hallway was silent and dim. The carpet muffled my steps, and the smell of cleaning products lingered faintly in the air. My suitcase wheels rattled quietly behind me as I passed by room 412, the one I was supposed to stay in. The door was slightly ajar, just enough to notice a sliver of darkness inside. My stomach tightened, but I told myself it was probably just housekeeping. I reached room 418 and unlocked it quickly. It looked like every other hotel room: white sheets, soft yellow lighting, and a small TV. I double-checked the lock and dropped my bag on the bed. Everything seemed normal again, and for a few minutes, I almost forgot about the strange exchange downstairs. I kicked off my shoes, sat down, and grabbed my phone. There were a few texts from my sister Lauren, who always worried about me traveling alone. I typed a quick reply. "Made it to the hotel. Going to crash soon." She replied right away, "Be safe. Don't forget to lock the door." I smiled and rolled my eyes. "Always the cop," I muttered. But as I plugged in my phone, I heard something. A faint thump, followed by a muffled voice. I paused, listening closely. The sound came again, this time from the direction of room 412. Then came a loud crash. It was followed by a scream so sharp and sudden, it made my blood run cold. I froze in place. The sound was coming directly from the room that was supposed to be mine. I stood up, my heart pounding so hard it felt like it might burst out of my chest. The screaming turned into shouting, then silence. I ran to the door and pressed my ear against it. Someone was moving quickly in the hallway. heavy footsteps, then a door slamming shut. My mind raced back to Maya's warning. Don't go to the room you booked. Something terrible was happening, and I was right in the middle of it. For a few seconds, I couldn't move. My body was frozen in place, my heart pounding in my ears. The sound of that scream replayed over and over in my mind. Then came silence. Heavy, suffocating silence. I pressed my ear harder against the door, trying to listen for anything that could tell me what was happening. There were muffled voices down the hall, one low and sharp, the other shaky and terrified. I couldn't make out the words, but it didn't sound like a normal argument. Something was wrong. I reached for my phone and immediately called the front desk. The line rang once before it cut off. I tried again. Nothing. My fingers trembled as I texted my sister Lauren. Something's happening at my hotel. I just heard someone scream in the room next to mine. She texted back instantly. Stay where you are. Don't open your door. I'm calling the local police right now. I nodded instinctively, even though she couldn't see me. Then I heard it again, a loud bang from the hallway. This time it was closer, like someone had kicked a door. My breathing quickened. I grabbed the small metal room key and held it tight, as if it could protect me from whatever was out there. A shadow passed by under my door. I crouched low, peeking through the tiny space between the floor and the bottom of the door. I saw a pair of black shoes stop right in front of my room. My stomach clenched. Whoever it was stood there for several seconds. Then a man's voice spoke calm and steady. "Security," he said. "Ma'am, are you all right in there?" For a moment, I almost believed him. But something about his tone didn't feel right. It wasn't professional. It was too casual, too smooth. My instincts screamed at me not to open the door. I stayed quiet, holding my breath. The man knocked again, this time harder. "Ma'am, we need to check all rooms. Please open the door." I still didn't move. After a few more knocks, the sound of footsteps moved away, fading down the hall. I exhaled shakily, my whole body trembling. My phone buzzed. It was Lauren again. "Police are on their way. Stay calm and don't move," I replied quickly. "Someone's pretending to be security." She typed back, "Good, then you already know not to open that door." Minutes passed, though they felt like hours. I stayed sitting on the carpet by the door, trying to listen. I could still hear faint noises from down the hallway, doors opening, footsteps, and then the soft creak of the elevator. Maybe whoever it was had left. But then suddenly I heard another sound, a woman's voice, weak and trembling, crying for help. "Please, someone help me." It came from the direction of room 412. The sound of it made my stomach twist. It was the same room I was supposed to be in. I wanted to open the door to help her, but fear kept me frozen. What if it was a trap? What if the voice wasn't real? I pressed my hands against my ears, trying to block out the guilt that was building inside me. Then came a noise that made my blood run cold, the distinct sound of a door slamming shut, and a man's low laugh echoing down the hallway. The woman's cries stopped instantly. I didn't hear anything after that. Not footsteps, not voices, nothing. Just silence again. I couldn't take it anymore. I needed answers. I moved to the window and looked down. 2 floors below, a white van was parked by the side exit with its headlights off. A figure stood near it, talking on a phone. It was too dark to see his face, but the way he moved made my skin crawl. I grabbed my phone and started recording through the window. My hands were shaking so badly the video was blurry, but I didn't care. I zoomed in as much as I could. A few seconds later, the man looked up toward my window as if he knew I was watching. Our eyes met for a split second before he walked around to the other side of the van and disappeared. That was when I finally panicked. I locked the deadbolt, pushed a chair under the door handle, and backed away. My mind was racing. Who were these people? Why had Maya changed my room? Just then, my phone rang. It was the front desk. My heart leapt. "Hello," I whispered. "Miss Sutton?" Maya's voice came through soft and shaking. Do not open your door for anyone. The police are on their way. Whatever happens, don't move. I swallowed hard. Maya, what's happening? Who are these people? There was a pause. I could hear her breathing. Then she said quietly, I can't talk long, but there's something you need to know. Someone checked in tonight using your name and ID. The system flagged it after you arrived. That's why I changed your room. My knees nearly gave out. Someone else checked in under my name. Yes, she said. They were supposed to meet someone in that room. When I realized it wasn't you, I switched your key to protect you. I gripped the phone tighter. Who were they meeting? But before she could answer, I heard something in the background shouting. Then the sound of a struggle. Maya, I called out, but the line went dead. I stood there in complete silence, my breath shallow and my heart pounding. Then from somewhere down the hallway, I heard heavy boots running toward my room. I backed away slowly, staring at the door. My sister's words echoed in my mind. Don't open it, no matter what. The footsteps stopped right outside. Then 3 slow knocks. The 3 knocks were slow, deliberate, and heavy. Each one vibrated through the wooden door and right into my chest. My breath hitched as I clutched the phone tighter, praying for it to ring again, for Maya to call me back, or for the police to finally arrive. But there was nothing, just silence and the faint hum of the air conditioner. The knocks came again, this time louder. Whoever was outside wasn't leaving. Miss Sutton, a deep voice called out. It's the police. We're checking all rooms. Please open the door. I froze. Police already. Lauren had said they were on their way, but I hadn't heard sirens yet. My instinct screamed that something wasn't right. I hesitated, stepping closer to the door, but not unlocking it. Can you show me your badge through the peephole? I called out, trying to keep my voice steady. There was a pause. Then the voice changed, softer now, but somehow colder. Miss Sutton, if you don't open this door, we'll be forced to come in. That confirmed it. He wasn't a cop. My hands trembled, and I felt sweat gather at the back of my neck. I whispered to myself, stay calm, stay quiet. I backed away from the door and grabbed the only weapon I could find, a metal lamp from the bedside table. My heart raced so hard I could feel every pulse in my fingertips. For a moment, everything went silent again. Then I heard the sound of metal scraping against the lock. Someone was trying to open my door. My throat tightened as I realized that the chair I'd shoved under the handle might be the only thing keeping me alive right now. I pressed my back against the wall and texted Lauren with shaking hands. Someone's trying to get in, pretending to be police. I'm in room 418. Within seconds, she replied, Hold on, I just got confirmation. Real police are 6 minutes away. Do not open that door for anyone. 6 minutes. I could survive 6 minutes. I crouched beside the bed, my lamp in hand, staring at the door. The scraping sound stopped suddenly, replaced by quiet footsteps moving away. I held my breath. Maybe he was gone. Maybe. A loud crash shattered the silence. The door burst open halfway before hitting the chair I had wedged beneath the handle. The chain lock held, but the wood cracked under the pressure. I screamed and stumbled backward, dropping the lamp. A man's arm forced its way through the opening, reaching for the chain. Get away from me! I yelled, grabbing the lamp again and swinging it as hard as I could. It hit the man's forearm with a sharp crack. He groaned and pulled back, retreating into the hallway. The door slammed shut again. I pushed the chair back into place, breathing hard, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold the lamp. The pounding started again, furious this time. You think you can hide in there? The man shouted. You shouldn't have come here, Claire. He knew my name. My stomach dropped. How did he know my name? My reservation had only been made online through the hotel's website. Whoever this was had access to my information. Then, faintly through the chaos, I heard sirens outside. Red and blue lights flashed through the blinds. Relief flooded through me, but I didn't move. The pounding stopped. The footsteps faded down the hall again, this time running toward the stairwell. I listened carefully until the sound disappeared completely. Moments later, I heard loud voices. Real ones this time. Police, drop your weapon. Hands where we can see them. Then a commotion followed by more shouting and finally silence. My phone buzzed again. It was Lauren calling. "Claire, are you okay?" she asked, her voice tense but steady. "I think so," I whispered, my voice breaking. "They tried to get in. They knew my name." "The police have someone in custody," she said. "Stay where you are. I'm on my way." A few minutes later, a real officer knocked on my door and identified himself properly, showing his badge through the peephole before entering carefully. He was tall, calm, and professional. "You're safe now," he said softly. "We've got him." I sank onto the bed, shaking from head to toe. "Who was he?" I asked. The officer exchanged a glance with his partner before answering. "We believe he's connected to a group targeting women traveling alone. The receptionist recognized his voice earlier tonight. That's why she switched your room." "Maya," I said quietly. "Where is she? Is she okay?" He nodded. "She's shaken, but she's the reason you're alive. She called us right after she lost contact with you." Tears welled in my eyes. I couldn't stop them this time. The relief was too heavy, too overwhelming. I covered my face and let out a trembling breath. The officers escorted me downstairs, where paramedics and more police filled the lobby. Maya sat in a chair near the front desk, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. When she saw me, she stood up immediately, her eyes red and tired. "I told you not to go to that room," she said, her voice shaking but firm. I nodded, wiping my tears. "You saved me. I don't even know how to thank you." She looked down, her voice quiet. "You don't have to. Just promise me one thing, never ignore your gut feeling. It's the only thing that listens when logic doesn't." Before I could reply, an officer approached Maya to ask for her statement. I watched her walk away, steady, but clearly haunted. She had faced danger for a stranger she barely knew. And because of that, I was still alive. As I stepped outside into the cool night air, I finally let myself breathe. The flashing lights of the patrol cars reflected off the hotel windows, and I could see my reflection in the glass. Pale, exhausted, but alive. For the first time, I realized just how close I had come to being one of those headlines you read online. "Woman found dead in hotel room." But I wasn't, because one woman paid attention to something everyone else ignored. That night didn't just change how I traveled. It changed how I trusted people and how I learned to listen when something felt wrong. And somewhere deep inside, I knew this story wasn't over yet. The danger had passed for now, but the truth behind it all was still waiting to be uncovered. The next morning, I woke up in a hotel room that no longer felt like mine. The sunlight poured weakly through the curtains, but it didn't bring comfort. It only made everything real. I had spent most of the night giving statements to the police, answering the same terrifying questions over and over. I was safe, they said. But I didn't feel safe. Not yet. Not when I still didn't know why someone had targeted me. The police escorted me downstairs again for a final interview. The lobby looked completely different from the night before, crowded with officers, reporters, and hotel staff whispering in corners. The front desk where Maya had stood just hours ago was now taped off. My stomach turned when I saw it. She wasn't behind the counter. "Where's Maya?" I asked one of the officers. He hesitated. "She's in the back, giving her statement. She's been very cooperative." That word cooperative felt strange. It didn't fit what she'd done. She hadn't just cooperated. She'd saved my life. When I finally saw her, she looked pale and exhausted. Her hands trembled slightly as she held a paper cup of coffee. I sat across from her while a detective flipped through notes beside us. "We've confirmed," he began. that the man who attacked your door last night was part of an organized group. They've been targeting single female travelers for months. They book rooms under fake identities and switch them with staff help. Most hotels never realize it until it's too late. Maya's eyes filled with tears. "That's how I knew something was off," she said quietly. "The man who checked in before you. He used your name. He came to the front desk earlier that evening claiming he was you. Said he lost his ID but had the booking confirmation on his phone. It almost worked. My chest tightened. So they were already pretending to be me before I even arrived." She nodded. "When you walked in, I realized instantly. I'd seen your ID photo when he checked in. It wasn't you. That's when I switched your key." The detective continued. "He wasn't working alone. There were two others. The woman's screams you heard came from one of their earlier victims. She survived, but barely. If Maya hadn't changed your room, you would have been next." The words hit me like a wave of cold water. I pressed my hands against my knees, trying to steady myself. The detective went on to explain how the group used stolen data from online travel sites, targeting women who shared real-time updates about their trips. They'd hack the hotel's booking system to track arrivals. "They were watching you, Miss Sutton," he said. "From the moment you posted about your Seattle trip online, they knew when you were coming." My throat went dry. I remembered the photo I'd shared that morning on social media. My boarding pass, the caption reading, "Seattle, here I come." I'd posted it without thinking, like everyone else does, but someone had been watching. Maya looked at me sadly. "You did nothing wrong," she said softly. "You couldn't have known." But I felt a deep, knowing guilt anyway. I had walked right into their plan. If it weren't for Maya's intuition, I might not have walked out again. The detective handed me a printed sheet of paper. "We caught the man who attacked you, and one of his accomplices was picked up near the state line early this morning. The third suspect is still missing, but we're confident he'll be found." I nodded, though my stomach still felt hollow. "What happens now?" "They'll face charges for assault, attempted murder, and multiple counts of fraud." He replied, "You'll be contacted when the trial begins. Until then, stay cautious. And if anyone contacts you pretending to be from law enforcement or the hotel, call us immediately." After giving my final signature, I turned to Maya. "Why did you risk it?" I asked quietly. "You could have just ignored it and gone home." She looked down at her hands, her voice low but firm. 2 years ago, I didn't listen to my instincts and someone got hurt because of it. I told myself that if I ever saw the signs again, I wouldn't look away. There was something in her tone, grief, regret, that made me realize she'd lived through something like this before. I wanted to ask her more, but the detective returned and interrupted, leading her away to review surveillance footage. Outside, the police cars were gone. The hotel had returned to its eerie normalcy. Guests coming and going like nothing had happened. I stood by the glass doors, staring at the parking lot where the white van had been the night before. It was empty now, but the memory of it still haunted me. As I was about to leave, Lauren's car pulled up. She got out quickly and hugged me tight. "You scared me half to death," she said, her voice rough. I laughed weakly. "Join the club." She looked at me seriously. "You know this could have gone differently, right?" "I do," I said, and I'll never forget that. We drove away in silence. Seattle's skyline blurred past the car windows, glowing under the morning sun. I watched people walking, laughing, sipping coffee, living their lives, completely unaware of how close danger sometimes lurks. Later that day, as I sat in the airport waiting for my flight home, my phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. My heart skipped a beat when I read it. "You were lucky this time, Claire." I froze. My fingers went cold. The message had no name, no number, just those 6 words. I quickly showed it to Lauren. She called the detective immediately, forwarding the message. The officer told us it could be from the missing suspect, possibly sent before he destroyed his phone. "They were still tracking him," he said, And I shouldn't worry, but I did because deep down, I knew that man hadn't just been watching me for one night. He had studied me, known my name, my habits, even my fears. When I finally boarded my flight, I sat by the window, gripping my seatbelt as the plane lifted into the clouds. The city disappeared beneath us, and I whispered a quiet thank you to Maya, to Lauren, and to the tiny voice inside me that had listened when everything felt wrong. That night changed how I saw the world. It taught me that evil doesn't always hide in dark alleys. It can stand behind a polite smile or a hotel check-in counter. And as the plane steadied in the air, I promised myself one thing. Never again would I ignore my instincts, because sometimes one warning whispered by a stranger is the only thing that stands between life and death. The next few weeks felt like living in someone else's life. Every sound made me jump. Every unfamiliar face made me second-guess myself. Even after returning home, I couldn't shake the habit of locking my doors twice and checking every window before going to bed. Sleep became a stranger. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, heart pounding, certain that someone was outside my door again. My sister Lauren insisted I take time off work. And for once, I listened. I needed space to understand what had happened, to let my mind catch up with my body. At first, I tried to bury it. I convinced myself that if I stayed busy, it would all fade away. But the truth doesn't fade just because you ignore it. One afternoon, as I was cleaning my living room, I came across the folder the detective had given me. Inside were printed copies of my police statement, photographs, and a few pages from the case report. I sat on the couch and read them again, word for word. That's when I realized something I hadn't before. My story wasn't just about what happened to me. It was about what could happen to anyone. That thought lingered. So instead of hiding, I started talking. Lauren helped me get in touch with a local women's safety group that worked with victims of online and travel-based crimes. They asked if I'd be willing to share my experience during one of their meetings. I almost said no. The idea of standing in front of people and reliving that night made my stomach twist. But I also remembered Maya's words. Never ignore your gut feeling. My gut told me it was time to speak. When the day came, I stood in a small community center surrounded by about 35 women, students, nurses, flight attendants, business travelers. As I began to tell my story, I could see the same emotions on their faces that I had felt in that hotel room. Fear, disbelief, shock. But by the end, those faces turned to determination. People came up to me afterward, thanking me for speaking up. One woman told me she'd been followed once on a trip, but brushed it off. After hearing you, she said, "I'll never ignore my instincts again." That moment changed something inside me. It didn't erase the trauma, but it gave it purpose. I wasn't just a victim anymore. I was someone who could help others avoid the same fate. Meanwhile, the investigation continued. The third suspect, the one who'd sent me that chilling text, "You were lucky this time, Claire," was finally caught 4 weeks later. He'd been hiding in a neighboring state under a false identity. When I got the call from the detective saying he'd been arrested, I didn't feel relief right away. I just felt tired. But later that night, as I sat on my porch with a cup of tea, a quiet calm settled over me. It was finally over. I decided to visit Seattle one last time. The hotel had reopened under new management, and I wanted to see Maya again to thank her properly. When I arrived, she looked surprised, but happy. We sat in the small cafe across the street. She looked different, stronger, lighter. "I still think about that night," I admitted. "I don't know if I'd be here without you." She smiled softly. "You would have made it. You're stronger than you think." I was terrified, I said. "So was I," she replied. "But courage doesn't mean you're not scared. It just means you act anyway." We talked for an hour about life after fear, how it changes you, how it makes you more careful but also more alive. Before leaving, she handed me a small envelope. Inside was a simple note: "Keep listening to your instincts. They saved you once. They'll save you again." When I got home, I framed that note and hung it by my front door. Every time I leave the house, I see it, a reminder of the night that almost ended me and the people who helped me survive it. Over time, I started feeling normal again, but a different kind of normal. I became more alert, more aware. I stopped posting my location online, stopped sharing travel plans publicly, and when I checked into hotels, I always double-checked the locks, the exits, and the staff badges. Some people might call it paranoia. I call it wisdom paid for in fear. Lauren still teases me sometimes. "You're the only person I know who carries a flashlight, a personal alarm, and pepper spray in her purse." I laugh because she's right, but I also know that preparedness is power. I used to think bad things only happened to other people. Now I know that's not true. One evening, I sat down to write everything that had happened. What started as a way to process my emotions became something bigger, a story that I wanted others to hear, not to scare them, but to prepare them. That's why I shared it here on Minister of Revenge. Because stories like mine aren't just about fear. They're about survival, intuition, and the small moments that decide our fate. Sometimes I still hear that scream in my dreams, the one that came from the room I was supposed to sleep in. It wakes me up, heart racing, until I remind myself, I made it. I'm alive. And I was given a second chance for a reason. Now, whenever I check into a hotel, I make eye contact with the person behind the counter, thank them genuinely, and pay attention to their tone, their expression, their energy. Because if I've learned anything, it's that heroes don't always wear uniforms. Sometimes they stand behind a front desk and save your life with just a whisper. That night in Seattle didn't just change my life, it gave it meaning. And if sharing it helps even one person stay safe, then everything I went through was worth it. If this story moved you, make sure to subscribe to Minister of Revenge and comment below where you're watching from. Your support helps me share more real stories that remind us to stay alert, stay kind, and always trust our instincts.